Sustainability Defined would like to thank the McDonough School of Business, Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and the Earth Commons at Georgetown University for sponsoring this episode. Are you interested in pursuing a master's degree in sustainability that strategically blends science with business principles? Well, look no further. Georgetown created its Master of Science in Environment and Sustainability Management program with the understanding that science and business principles are both critical to achieving sustainability goals across the globe. Learn more and apply by May 15th by visiting esm.georgetown.edu. That's esm.georgetown.edu. All right, Definers, welcome back to another episode of Sustainability Defined, where Scott and I are here defining sustainability one topic and one bad joke at a time. This is a bonus episode focusing on the Georgetown Master of Science in Environment and Sustainability Management program, or MS-ESM. So, Scott, I know we're excited to dive into another educational resource for Definers to perhaps check out and advance their careers. So, along those lines, let's jump in. What is this intro going to look like?
All right, so first, of course, we're going to give an overview of the Georgetown MS-ESM program, and then we're going to have a discussion with two guests, Jay. This is nice. We've got a professor, Vishal Agrawal, Henry J. Blommer, Family Endowed Chair in Sustainable Business, and Professor of Operations Management at the McDonough School of Business. And then we have a current student, David Yellen, in this program, and he's also a strategic advisor for the Clean Air Task Force. So two disclosures here, Jay. One, Vishal and I are friends. Second, I'm a Georgetown alum, so I'm predisposed to liking this program.
And I can say, Scott, as an impartial bystander here, I too am very interested in the program. It's that good.
All right.
So let's jump in and kick things off. The Georgetown Master of Science in Environment and Sustainability Management program, or again, the MS-ESM, is a jointly offered degree that blends science with business principles.
It's a good smoothie right there.
That's right. It's a tasty, tasty smoothie. The Georgetown University Earth Commons Institute, along with the McDonough School of Business and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, created this degree with the understanding that science and business principles are both critical to achieving sustainability goals across the globe.
So this MS-ESM program, it's a full-time, 11-month interdisciplinary program held on campus in Washington, D.C. So this isn't a certificate program. It's not part-time. It's full-time. You get a master's, and it's in person. Now, over this 11-month time span, students in the MS-ESM program, they complete 16 courses or 30 credits. They cover a range of science and business topics like finance for sustainability, ESG investing, business and sustainability management, environmental visualization and storytelling, and many more.
These courses are delivered in person in a module format, with skill-building courses spanning 6 weeks and science-oriented courses running for a full semester. The program concludes with a capstone course where students draw from the entire program as they consult for a partner organization. I think we're excited to hear from David about his experience there.
Yeah.
The inaugural class of the MS-ESM program joined Georgetown in the fall of 2022. The cohort of 45 students, all with a desire to make an impact in the sustainability field, represent over 20 countries and come from a broad range of educational backgrounds and expertise.
Right. So, Jay, this is a new program. That cohort in the fall of 2022 was the first one. So that means you could be part of the second one if you apply now. And it also means that the program isn't stuck in its ways. You can shape it and be part of helping create a program that's going to impact you and future students as well.
Absolutely.
And then for those interested in exploring being part of the second class, the fall 2023 cohort, applications are currently being accepted through May 15th. There's a recording of an info session on their website, esm.georgetown.edu. The website also has info on upcoming application events, including another live virtual info session on April 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern. But again, applications due by May 15th.
And Scott, before we talk about our guests, you spent great time at Georgetown. So as an additional selling point for students considering this program, what were your favorite restaurants and coffee spots on campus?
Well, I'll just say one thing that is cool about going to Georgetown is that my jogs were often to the Lincoln Memorial and back.
So cool. Oh, Scott, is Georgetown Cupcake still going as strong as it used to be?
Yeah, but as a student, you don't pay $5 for a cupcake. But I will say they did just open a Call Your Mother, which is this bagel coffee shop that's delicious. Definitely wasn't there when I was a student, but it's there now, and it's so good.
Fantastic.
Which, Jay, reminder, call your mother.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, Jay, let's go hear what's going on the hilltop.
Off we go.
All right, Definers, welcome to the interview portion of our bonus episode focused on Georgetown's MS-ESM program. We've got a professor, we've got a student, we're going to learn all about this program. So the professor that we have is my friend, Vishal Agrawal. He's the Henry J. Blommer Family Endowed Chair in Sustainable Business and Professor of Operations Management at the McDonough School of Business. And then we also have David Yellen. He's a current student in the MS-ESM program, but he's also a strategic advisor of the Clean Air Task Force. So we're going to talk with both of them about the program and their experience, both in the professional field, but also with this program. So with that, Vishal, I'd love to talk with you first and give a bit of background on you. So you've got this bachelor's degree in engineering from the University of Mumbai. You then got your master's of science in industrial engineering and your PhD in operations management from Georgia Tech. So how did all of this turn into what you're doing now? Like looking at sustainable business, teaching sustainable business. Was this always something that was in your head as you were studying engineering and whatnot, or did it come later? When did this start?
Great question, Scott. When you think about engineering, especially industrial engineering or operations management, you're sort of in the business of making better decisions. So I came to sustainability during my doctoral program.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for interesting problems to focus not just my doctoral work, but my entire career on. And there were sort of some of the things which I wanted to look at were things like, what are important problems which could actually improve the world, but also require you to think about interdisciplinary knowledge and sort of solve problems at those interfaces. So that's sort of what drew me to sustainability, especially sustainable business. Some of my other colleagues at that point were looking at a lot of technical stuff, like how do you improve algorithms by 5%, which are very interesting and cool. But for me, I wanted to look at something, more significant in terms of societal good and making an improvement. And that sort of drew me during my doctoral programs to problems related to sustainability. They tend to be difficult. They tend to cut across different disciplines. And that was just fun and exciting in some ways, especially when you think about what you need to learn and do.
So you like to be a problem solver. That's what I took from this. And sustainability has interesting problems that you feel like if you solve, you make an impact on.
Yeah, exactly. And difficult problems, because, I could focus on just, let's say, industrial engineering or operations management. That wouldn't be enough.
Mm-hmm.
So over my entire time working on sustainable business, both in terms of my research and teaching, I've had to learn a lot more about other business disciplines like economics and marketing and finance, but also about more on the science side, like environmental science, industrial ecology. So that's been quite a lot of fun, both from like an academic perspective, but also just in terms of making an impact.
For sure. And I would think also the psychology of how do you get people to think about this appropriately and get all the interests aligned and whatnot. And I imagine another reason to get into this is that there were jobs and they're teaching more and more classes on this. And, we gave one of your titles at the outset, but you're also the director for the McDonough School of Business's Business of Sustainability Initiative, MBA Certificate on Sustainable Business, and the Undergraduate Sustainable Business Fellows Program. So you are doing a lot. So do you want to talk about some of these different facets, all these different programs going on at the McDonough School of Business?
Yeah, definitely. It's also funny that you mentioned the prospect of jobs. When I was graduating with my PhD in 2010, it was sort of unheard of at least in the business side, for people focusing just on sustainability. But that's sort of what I was doing. And I was lucky enough to be at Georgetown, which sort of is an excellent place, both being in DC and because of what Georgetown is, to be working on these topics. And so over the last decade, slowly, given both in terms of demand from our students, but the job prospects out there for our students and sort of the gap in terms of talent and knowledge, we've just started with a bunch of these programs around sustainable business. So the first one among them was the MBA Certificate on Sustainable Business, which is about 5 or 6 years old now, where our MBA students take a sequence of courses on different areas of sustainable business as part of that MBA certificate. We have something similar in our undergraduate program now, the Undergraduate Sustainable Business Fellows program, which is both business school and non-business school students who are in this program. And an interesting thing about it is, which is quite unusual, that program was developed and proposed by the students themselves. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of energy and excitement about these topics in the student body, and especially at Georgetown.
I think that speaks volumes of Georgetown and you, that you're willing to create programs and meet students where they want to go.
I mean, that's been the fun part, right? I joke that it's a first world problem for people to be so interested in what you do.
Mm-hmm. All right, Vishal, so let's start drilling a little bit more deeply into the program.
Yeah.
So Georgetown's MS-ESM is a full-time 11-month interdisciplinary program held on campus in Washington, D.C. So could you just walk us through the primary goals of the program and perhaps share what participants can expect to learn and gain during their 11 months with you and the other professors?
Yeah. In fact, let me even go back a little bit and tell you why we started this program.
Sure.
So as I just mentioned, we had this MBA certificate, we had the undergraduate programs, but one of the things that you hear very commonly in practice, whether when you talk to companies or NGOs or policymakers, is this sort of gap in talent out there where you want employees and folks who have an understanding of the environmental science and the scientific topics involved as it relates to sustainability, but also actually be able to make decisions, whether it's for a business or an NGO or a policymaker, right? So that gap was sort of what got us to launch this degree. Mm-hmm. So as you can imagine, one of the big and the primary goal of this degree is to sort of provide that interdisciplinary, and I will even emphasize integrated knowledge on both environmental science and business, so that we can understand these problems, but then also actually implement changes, implement strategies which actually move the needle. So that's sort of the primary goal in terms of launching this degree. And as you said, it's a full-time 11-month degree in DC. DC specifically and Georgetown is a perfect place to launch this sort of a degree because we have unparalleled access to thought leaders, policymakers, industry experts, industry associations. For example, the work that Scott does is quite exciting and interesting, and we have organizations like that in DC.
I was going to say, thanks for mentioning industry associations. People always forget about us.
Yeah.
And that was, exactly. I remember when I was a Georgetown tour guide, that was one of the things that I would bring up, is that no matter what you're interested in, there's the association for that. You can go intern. Mm-hmm. And I would think similarly for a graduate program, no matter where your studies take you or what you're doing your capstone on or whatever, there's the association for that to engage.
And that's where I have to give credit to Scott. I learned a lot about industry associations from Scott.
And metal cans. Yeah, I get it.
Now I always have to make sure to talk about them. And actually, that is an excellent source of information, knowledge, and jobs for students, right? Because mm-hmm. you get to sort of work on industry collaborations and at the industry level to solve some of these problems. So that's also why we wanted it to be in person in DC, to be able to have that access and those connections. As you can imagine, Georgetown has an excellent, both broad and deep network of alumni in all of these different kinds of organizations. That's sort of how we thought of this degree. And the whole idea is that, they're going to spend 11 months with us, not just understanding the environmental science, but also a lot of business fundamentals, right? For example, understanding finance, accounting, just the basic principles themselves, but then also specific topics within those different business domains as they relate to sustainability. So the students will be, and I can get more in detail about this, but we'll be going through quite an intense and extensive set of curriculum, learning on both sides, but more importantly, also learning about how to integrate those two pieces together to actually make an impact.
That's great, Vishal. And I know we introduced David, had a chance to say hi to him, but we're excited to David speak with you coming up in the conversation to hear about your perspective as well. So we're looking forward to that. All right, Vishal, phenomenal overview. I do want to ask you though, when you think about Georgetown's MS-ESM. What would you say differentiates it from other graduate level sustainability programs that applicants out there might be considering?
Yeah, excellent question. This is the first question we asked ourselves even before we thought of launching a program, right?
As a good business does, what's the white space we're filling?
Yeah. And then as you can imagine, I'm a professor in the business school. So, that's sort of the perspective that I come at this with. But, there's a lot of excellent graduate level programs there in sustainability. Most of them tend to be in the environmental science schools or the natural resources schools. And of course, there might be some coursework on business, right? What we really wanted to do was have a truly interdisciplinary degree. So this is one of the very fairly unique degrees where it's actually a joint collaboration. And in fact, the ESM stands for Environment and Sustainability Management. So as the name tells you, it's a collaboration between the McDonough School of Business at Georgetown, the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences at Georgetown, as well as Earth Commons Institute, our sort of flagship environmental institute on the Georgetown campus. So as it tells you, just not by the collaboration of the three entities involved, but the program is truly interdisciplinary, where half of the coursework that the students are doing is through business school professors who are teaching them business skills, but also sustainable business specifically. I'll give you a few examples. And then the other half is through environmental science. And perhaps the most interesting and exciting thing about this program is the courses where those two sort of integrate and join together to really blend and provide an interdisciplinary learning. So I would say that's the biggest differentiation about this, that it is a truly interdisciplinary degree, especially through the involvement of both the McDonough School of Business and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, which is fairly unique compared to all the other graduate programs out there. And, we truly believe to be able to make a difference in the world, either you have to be in businesses making these decisions and improving the impact, or whether you work for a policymaker or an NGO, to be able to understand how businesses make these decisions, right? So to us, it was very important to really meld both business and environmental science together. And I think that's perhaps the biggest differentiator for this degree.
Do you have a favorite success story of where that interdisciplinary approach came to life?
We're in the middle of our first cohort who'll be graduating in a few months. As the co-academic director, I've already started seeing a lot of examples of success stories. So for example, one of the things we do in all our courses is allow students to customize those courses. What I mean is in each of these courses, they get to pick a group project where they really delve into a specific topic related to that project, right? One of the flagship courses of the degree is this introductory course in their first semester, which is actually co-taught by me, somebody from the business school, as well as a professor from the environmental science side, where we actually co-teach this.
Cool.
And one of the things we did was have students look at different global value chains for important resources, which have both environmental, economic, and equity concerns. They had an entire semester to study in depth about things like palm oil value chains or cobalt or sand, for example. And the students not only did an excellent job at their course in regard to that project, but actually learned a lot and became experts on them. So I'll give you a few examples. The team that worked on palm oil ended up publishing an article in the Supply Chain Management Review based on everything that they had learned and their expertise on that topic.
Wow, cool.
Excellent.
Which is quite impressive, right? And we did not we only heard about it when they had already done it, which was very impressive. The other example I'll give you, the other flagship course is an actual capstone course where students are working on real world consulting projects. So for example, this year we're working on different organizations like Amazon, Starbucks, Department of Energy, some cool energy startups, as well as solar power companies. For example, David is working with Amazon on a capstone project. And as I was listening to them talk to their client, I realized that some of the members of the team were the ones who had worked on that sand global value chain. So they already had a lot of expertise on sustainability issues related to building materials. So if you start thinking about decarbonization and green buildings, all of that knowledge automatically transfers. So that's been, to me, already a sign of success, that what they're learning through the coursework, through their projects, is already giving them a base of expertise and experience to leverage as they go further in their careers.
Yeah, so it sounds like the coursework itself is interconnected. And David, I wonder if we could transfer over to you. I mean, first, before we ask you some background questions, what was the thing that you looked into the supply chain of?
Yeah, I mean, one, thanks for having me, Scott and Jay.
Sure.
I was in the plastics team,
Ah,
and I was especially interested in that. So my background's in energy and energy policy. So I actually was interested in plastics because of oil's role in its supply chain, and went in very cynical about there really being any solutions for long-term plastic use. I mean, I know there are very few alternatives, and basically it's one of the dirtiest industries in the world, but that course was a really good experience in working with other students from other industries and trying to find those solutions and identifying what the business case is. And that's what is most foreign to me and what I was most interested in this program.
and you said you came in really skeptical. Did you come out less skeptical? Is there something you all kind of hit on as maybe where it's going to go?
I will say, I think when you take a close look at plastics, the main thing you're awed by is the size of the problem. But I think given some of the business models that we reviewed, and in particular, introducing more circularity into the plastic supply chain and just reducing use through a bunch of different policies and business models, I think I'm optimistic about the potential of the industry. I think it's not there yet and it has a long way to go, but the project certainly opened my eyes to solutions that I hadn't thought about before coming from the industry that I did.
Oh, well, that's cool. I mean, that's kind of what you want in a course, right? Is to learn more about something and have your eyes opened up, not only about that, but then it changes the way you think for other problems. So very cool. And I wonder if we can ask you, like we heard Vishal, he was doing his PhD, looking for problems to solve, saw sustainability as a problem he could solve that was interesting and tough and could have an impact. I mean, where do you trace your interest in sustainability in business?
So I was an undergrad at Georgetown in government, and I was very interested in policy work. So not related to business, at least at the time, I thought not. And I was also very interested in looking for the topics where there was the biggest challenge and the biggest impact. And I think it's pretty clear that sustainability, and from my work in climate, those are the most important and most challenging issues that we are facing today. For me, it's the challenge that makes it really interesting. And it's also the interdisciplinary nature of it that makes it very interesting. And this is where I'm worried I'm becoming a broken record. So before I worked in policy, I was doing some basic lab work, and I was very begrudging about giving up the science career for policy.
Sure.
And when I stumbled upon energy, which I think I did in undergrad, in a combination of while taking international relations and while interning in Congress, I felt like I had struck gold because I had found a topic that I could both work on science and work on policy. And the two were very closely interconnected.
Sure.
And that's also what attracted me to this program and to business. One of the things I've certainly learned, having worked in policy for a few years, is that policy is really just about creating the enabling ecosystem. And apologies to my environmental science professors for using that term out of context. Yeah, I'm really diving into the bad jokes part of the
we respect that. Yes.
But creating the ecosystem for businesses who are the real direct actors in these industries to make a positive change. And so what I've realized, and the reason that the business aspect of the program was so attractive to me, is that you really have to understand businesses' perspectives to try to shape the policy environment to be more enabling.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of where I was too when I graduated from Georgetown, where I saw through my coursework that I could apply my interest in government and economics to the environmental field. So I was like, well, I'll level that up with graduate studies. And I went to Indiana, I got this law and master's degree. I think you chose a much wiser path because mine took 4 years of graduate school and this is 11 months.
Well, this didn't exist, so you can't be blamed.
Oh, you're so kind.
You also diversified your college basketball teams, Scott,
That's
which
true.
is by no means a bad thing.
All good points by everyone. But it sounds like, David, if I'm hearing you correctly, that really you pursued this program to kind of level up the exposure you had in undergrad and some of your initial jobs. And so can you tell us, like, is this delivering? Is it leveling up your skills, and what do you hope to do with it? I know you're now a Clean Air Task Force, but tell us more about how your personal skills and thinking are being enhanced, and then what you hope to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, like I said, one of the things that really attracted me was the interdisciplinary nature of the program. A lot of the students in the program, a lot of the folks in my cohort have either a background working in business or consulting or in science. I'm coming in from policy. So both of the two disciplines that are being covered, I have not really spent a lot of time in, which has made it all the more interesting. But I think To Vishal's earlier point, it's not just that there are some courses that are bridging the gap between those two. It's that even the courses that you would think are siloed in business or siloed in science are still crafted, because it's a cohort program, are still crafted to cover both sides. So, we have an accounting course, and I went into that thinking, wow, I've never touched accounting. I have plenty of friends who have worked and gone in business school, and it's never sounded that attractive.
Debits on the left, credits on the right, David.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I work in a business school and I've never taken an accounting class, so
Really?
I just learned some stuff. Yeah.
All right.
What's really fascinating about it is we had accounting for sustainability, and so
cool.
we did all the basics of accounting, and then we spent the last third of the course or so talking about how we can get sustainability metrics to be taken seriously when companies are undergoing accounting processes.
And thinking through what's material and what's not.
Exactly.
And how do we make them comparable? And yep, I'm with you.
Exactly. And similarly in environmental science, when we talk about a lot of the issues facing various ecosystems, facing biodiversity, we frequently talk about the industries that are impacting them and why they're making the business decisions they are. There is no course that is siloed or exists apart from this interdisciplinary nature. And I think that is what has really helped my thinking professionally and my thinking outside of the program as well, is that none of these things exist in a silo. I think I knew that going in, but building these business perspectives into my thinking has been super valuable, whether it's from the case studies that we've done in our operations courses, or it's the capstone project that we're now undertaking.
And so, David, we've talking about phenomenally intricate stuff within your experience in the program. And I actually maybe want to take a step back here, because I imagine when folks are listening to this episode, we could be catching some of them asking this question. Okay, so should I look for programs like this? And then should I, if I find something I like, should I apply? So I want to go back and specifically ask you, how did you come across this particular program at Georgetown? And then after doing your research on it, what encouraged you to apply?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to have gone to Georgetown undergrad. And frankly, that probably helped me find out about it. The listeners of the episode are luckier than I am, because now there's content covering it more broadly. So hopefully that'll help reach more broadly. I knew several professors in other parts of Georgetown and knew that this program was in development, basically. And I had considered grad school for a couple years at that point, and had actually sort of put it off and deferred a few times, because for the most part, the programs that I was looking at were directly in my field. At the time, I was looking at programs that were on energy policy or energy and international affairs, things like that were very directly what I had already been working on, what I felt I knew pretty well. And so what was important for me was finding a graduate degree that was aligned with my interests, but wasn't repetitive with that experience, or one that helped me build new capabilities, but was still substantively relevant to what I was working on. That is what made this program stand out to me after having learned more about it. So that's one piece of it, is the sort of capacity building and the fact that it was complementary, but not redundant. The other piece, I think, is the cohort model and the interdisciplinarity that I mentioned. So I think it's a huge benefit, and it's pretty unique among similar programs, I believe, or at least it was when I was applying, that all of our classes are with the same group of people, and that enables some of those crossover course references that I was mentioning. If you're going to an interdisciplinary program where you're taking accounting with all of the MBAs, it becomes harder to do the sustainability segment of it. And so I think that the cohort model, and also just developing closer relationships with your classmates. And I think, that is, I'm also in the privileged position of working while in the program. So I am not as deep into the career search as others are, but very supportive of their journeys. And I think the program has great resources for them. But what I will say is that some of the best connections for me have been the other people in the cohort from other industries that I'm not familiar with. And having worked with them, whether it's on the plastics industry or it's on a software company's business strategy, I learn from them and from their perspectives as much as I do from the professors.
And if I could add, one of the things we've been very excited about, even just in our first cohort, is sort of what David mentioned, the diversity of backgrounds, experience, different parts of the world that they come from has been quite interesting, like David said, for the students to learn from each other, but also for us as professors to just have very much more enriching and interesting discussions in class, and we learn a lot. So just to David's point, in the first cohort, we had something like 18 or 20 different countries represented, and 40% of the students are international. There's quite a lot of diversity in terms of work experience, both in number of years as well as the industries that they've worked on. So that's made it quite a lot of fun and enriching, and sort of scales up the learning and the professional network development, like David mentioned.
And they're all in person, all these diverse people.
Yeah.
And then just quickly, so David, you mentioned that you're still working. Is the program set up to enable that? Are most people doing that? Because I imagine that might be on the minds of a lot of our listeners considering this.
What I'll say is it is a challenge to be in a full-time program and basically working full-time.
I would think.
When you put it like that, David.
Yeah, it is certainly a choice that can be made. but everybody should evaluate whether it's right for them. For me, Vishal could perhaps speak to whether it's intentional. All of the classes right now are on 2 days of the week, which leaves 3 for many of my classmates that don't work to do all of the coursework and dive deeper into research that's relevant to the courses. Mm-hmm. For me, it was attractive, having lived and worked in DC for several years, to try to continue that while I could. And I was fortunate to have an employer that was pretty flexible in terms of those hours and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just add, like David said, it is a full-time program. At least for now, and I think maybe for the next few years, we're able to stack it such that classwork or coursework is on Monday, Wednesdays, which gives you a lot of time, like David said, to pursue an internship, which some of the students are doing, a full-time job, like David is managing and juggling successfully, or even just use that time to sort of delve deeper into learning other things and enjoying all the other on-campus opportunities through guest speakers and through other events that are happening.
And the cherry blossoms right now.
Exactly.
So, David, and I believe Vishal alluded to this earlier in the conversation, but I'd like to know if you have any favorite experiences from the program, and perhaps that could be the capstone you're currently working on that I believe is in conjunction with Amazon, if I have that right.
I mean, we just got started, and I think it's already been really fascinating to get my head around and work with the other students on. So for that project, we are working with Amazon basically on figuring out how to identify innovative technologies that will scale within the next 15 years and be relevant for their decarbonization and for broader industry decarbonization. So really fascinating, pretty similar to what I have worked on professionally, but different in such a way that I can bring to bear all of the things we've learned in all of our courses, and especially the business courses. That is a real highlight, and it's very interesting to take these, what we've basically worked on as case studies in all of our classes, and actually apply it to a real current case. That being said, I think the case studies are actually also a highlight for me. I mean, coming from a government undergrad program, a lot of the classes I took were pretty typical poli-sci classes. I, had some unique courses, but none that were case-based. And I know that is a mainstay of business courses, but we've done cases even in our science courses. And I found it to be a really useful way, especially while bridging grad school and working, to make these things more tangible. And that's been really valuable to me. That's been a huge highlight. I think the other thing I'll mention, that Vishal mentioned, is the guest speakers that we've had across courses have been a big highlight, bringing in folks. And DC is a wonderful place for it, because so many people in the city are working on these issues every day.
For sure.
So learning from them has been great. And then some of the most fun things we've done have been simulations in various classes, including in that intro course, we did a fishing simulation, which all of us failed pretty miserably, but learned a good lesson about sustainability. Basically, we were all fishing in the same fishery and did not manage its sustainability particularly well.
Well, David, again, I think the word of the conversation between speaking with both you and Vishal is interdisciplinary, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what sounds like a hallmark of what the Georgetown MS-ESM program has to offer. Mm-hmm. So, David, one of our final questions for you specifically is what would your advice be for folks listening that are considering applying for this Georgetown program?
My first piece of advice is that for me, it's been really valuable to have had some work experience between undergrad and this, and to bring my perspective from that experience to bear. My advice from that is to not feel limited by the experience or lack of experience you have. We have a good portion, I'm not sure on the exact number, of my classmates are straight out of undergrad, and their perspectives have been incredibly valuable as well. And the other thing I'll say is, like I mentioned, I came into this not having a background in environmental science and not having a background in business, and not necessarily planning to go into business. So I think what I would say is, don't feel limited by not having worked on these things before, because your perspective will be that much more interesting because of that. I came into this program knowing I wanted to work in sustainability and probably specifically in energy and energy policy. So basically continuing, but with a more rounded perspective from the business side. I also was very open to transitioning to the private sector, but it was just an option. It was not something I was committed to. And so I would say, if you want to work in just policy, if you want to work in NGOs, if you want to work in business, this program is valuable across the board because these perspectives are necessary in every field. I think that the diversity of the program is its real strength, and the diversity of perspective is its real strength. If you have not worked in sustainability, you have not worked in business or environmental science, but are thinking that it is something that is interesting to you for any of the reasons that we've mentioned or any others, I wouldn't feel limited by that lack of experience at all.
That's great. David, phenomenal answer. Vishal, we're going to ask the same question to you, which is, what would your advice be for folks that are considering applying? And next to David's phenomenal answer, I think Scott and I are going to be grading you on this one. But I think well, you have some good chops to bring.
I was going to ask Vishal to grade David's answer. So yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is now when I will sound like a broken record. But yeah, no, that's exactly what I would emphasize, that we have by design crafted this program. And now listening to David sounds like something we've been able to deliver on, is to accommodate a variety of experiences, variety of career goals, variety of interests, right? And so that's how the program is designed. So I'll say the same thing. No matter what your career goals are, whether it's to work for a for-profit company or an NGO or a policymaker, this program is really well set up to give you that rounded view, like David said, understanding all of these different perspectives. If you really want to make an impact and learn how to not just understand the problems, but actually come up with solutions and figure out how to implement them, that is something that is interesting as well. And then the last bit I'll say, which David explained really well, is that no matter whether you're fresh out of undergrad or whether you've had decades of experience, we have both of those extremes in the same cohort as David. And I can tell you that they're all getting a lot, as David did, through the program. Don't hesitate to consider this program.
Well, all good stuff all around. I want to take us to our last traditional question. So let's pretend that we've all gotten some delicious food from Vital Vittles, the student-run grocery store that I worked at and that everyone going to Georgetown should buy things at. And then we're hanging out on Healy Lawn, enjoying the day, beautiful spring day on Georgetown's campus. And we're with some people that aren't as familiar with this program or maybe don't know so much about sustainability. So David and Vishal, I'd love for each of you to give us a party fact that we could throw out to these people while we're hanging out on Healy Lawn. It could be about the program. It could be about something on sustainability generally, but give us a party fact. What do you got?
I'll go back to that plastics project that we talked about earlier. And I'll try not to make this too pessimistic. Let's think of it as a call to action. Mm-hmm. So along the way of framing the problem in the plastics industry, we found that only 5% of plastic use in the United States is recycled, and only 1% globally. And so I say that not as a pessimistic or as to be doomer about the plastics industry, but rather to stress how far we have to go and how much opportunity there is to work on sustainability in many of these industries, including plastics, but also energy.
Like you said, the scale of the problem is something that you became so much more aware of through this. Exactly.
And it's a call to action. I think, This is really a call to anybody interested. We need more folks working on these problems. So apply to programs like this to help out.
I love it. Okay, Vishal, keep up here. That was pretty good.
Ooh, I was going to say, surprisingly, mine will be somewhat similar, but something that's on the top of my mind.
Uh-huh.
So I think the last numbers I saw was in the US, more than 70 to 80% of clothing either gets landfilled or burnt.
Yeah.
And which is quite a big thing. Also sort of has a similar flavor to David. I usually focus on that means lots of opportunities to make a difference. So I've been talking to a lot of apparel companies on how to design consumer take-back programs so that we can divert these from landfills and incineration and instead recycle them or reuse them. And as you can imagine, there's a variety of problems all the way from consumer behavior, which I'm able to work on with a lot of my marketing colleagues, to reverse supply chains, which my supply chain colleagues are great at, and a host of other business model challenges, but also opportunities to solve.
I agree with all that. I think it also, there's a lot to be said for what is put out into the marketplace. Like certain kinds of plastics are easier to recycle. Certain kinds of textiles are easier to deal with at end of life. And we have done episodes on sustainable apparel and plastics. So listeners, if you're interested in those topics, it's in the catalog, just waiting for you. But Vishal and David, thanks for bringing up those topics. Thanks for giving us your perspectives on this program, so our listeners that are interested can check it out. And if they are interested, where should they go, Vishal and David? Where's the best place to learn more?
So the best place to go would be esm.georgetown.edu, our website, which has all the information you need about the program as well as on how to apply.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for talking with us, and it'll be exciting to see how this program grows and impacts more students and then what they do with their learnings.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Hoya Saxa.
You don't even know what that means.
Do not. All right, Scott, you not too long ago reminded me that I should call my mother. So I think I need to wrap this one up and give her a quick buzz.
I should probably call my mom too, Jay, then.
I think they'd both appreciate it.
I agree. And one other thing is, Jay, you mentioned Hoya Saxa, and I rightfully said you didn't know what that means. Maybe some of the definers out there don't know what it means. So I will share the story with you. So Georgetown used to have a very good football program, like way back in the day. And the students were sitting on the stone walls cheering on the program because we were the Georgetown Stone Walls at the time. And they had Greek and Latin as required languages. Thank God not anymore, but they did at the time. And so the students, being clever, decided, well, we're learning these languages. Let's make a cheer with words from the languages. So Hoya in Greek means what, and Saxa in Latin means rocks. So Hoya Saxa means what rocks. So now we're called the Georgetown Hoyas. And if someone says to you, what is a Hoya? You just say yes.
I love that. I have two observations. Number one, I can tell that you were a fantastic tour guide when you were on campus. And number two, I am personally happy for your alma mater that your mascot is no longer a stone wall. Come on.
Yeah, that'd be a tough mascot costume.
Although I guess that would indicate a good defense, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm also glad Greek and Latin are not required. Foreign languages are not my friend. So. All right. So, Jay, we've got a couple quick thank yous here. One is Taylor Price, our operations and research director. She helped write the introduction, do the interview questions, so her help was greatly appreciated and valuable.
And we also want to thank Lindsay Jameson, who is the Associate Director of Marketing and Recruitment for the MS-ESM program at Georgetown University. Lindsay, thanks for your help in setting this episode up.
All right, Jay, I think that about does it. You all stay sustainable out there. I'm Scott Breen.
And I'm Jay Siegel. We will see you next time.